Hey everyone, welcome to this new series that I'm doing on this channel. This is a new series of video art tips that are going to be every month, and they're kind of designed for those of you who are brand new beginners to oil painting or up to like kind of a medium level. So in that range, we're going to go over basic things like fundamentals, and we're going to start at the start. We're going to make it simple. So for those of you that are brand new to oil painting, we're just going to start with what you need to do to get started for the first tip. All right. So when you're finally just getting into oil painting, there's so much stuff. It's so overwhelming to figure out, what do I do? How do I go about things? What type of materials should I get? So the first thing I want to say is, when you're buying paint, don't buy a lot of paint. Buy 4 tubes. So 3 colors plus white, and that's it. And I'm going to give you a few brushes to buy, and then that's it. And the other thing is, you'll see lots of palettes, lots of, plastic palettes, paper palettes, the little kind of wax paper ones that you can tear off and throw away. For those of you who are new to painting, like brand new, if you can afford it, I want you to get a glass palette, all right? I'm gonna show you what a glass palette is here in just a second, but you see it in all of my videos. That palette that I'm working on is glass. And you can buy it on Amazon, or you can go to Jerry's Artorama. You can go to an art store and ask them, hey, do you have any glass palettes? And they probably do. A lot of them are colored gray. So like there's a layer of paint beneath the palette, and it basically is colored gray. So the reason that you don't want to paint on white palettes is it's terrible, all right? So many painters paint on white palettes, and it makes your job so much harder because you're painting on a bright white surface and it's tough to see the mixtures. You end up painting everything a little bit too dark, or your values get off. So paint on a glass palette. It's also easier to clean up. So that's first. Glass palette. The 3 oil colors that I want you to buy are bright red from Winsor & Newton, ultramarine blue from either Winsor & Newton or Gamblin, and cadmium lemon from any company is fine, but Gamblin works best. All right, and then buy a tube of titanium white. Now here's the thing. Don't buy small tubes. Don't buy the little 37 milliliter tubes. I want you to go ahead and buy big tubes of paint. So through Winsor & Newton, you can get a big 200 milliliter tube, just like this. And this was, I think, only $20. So it lasts me about 6 months. So you'll save money, believe it or not, buying a big tube. And the other thing is, when you're using little tiny tubes like these, let me show you, you tend to squeeze out little tiny bits of paint. You're so worried about the paint. So when you have a big tube of paint like this, you're gonna squeeze out a lot of paint and use up that paint, all right? So one of the first things that you need to know when you're oil painting is, don't skimp on paint, but squeeze out a lot on your palette. And if you have to throw it away, that's fine, all right? Paint is cheaper than you probably think if you're not buying really expensive colors. All right, so now that we have our paint and we have our palette, brushes. So I use a series of brushes, but for those of you that are new to painting, you can go to a Michaels or a Hobby Lobby or Jerry's Artorama. This is, I believe, just a Hobby Lobby. It's called Master's Touch. I like these brushes a lot. I've used so much brushes. I've used really expensive Rosemary & Co brushes. And the thing is, oftentimes the mid-range brushes are better than the really expensive ones. So I would suggest going to, getting an Artist Loft, the brushes they're called synthetic bristles, all right? This is Master's Touch, but you can go to Michael's and get the Artist Loft ones. And this is basically, let me show you a clean one. this is what they look like clean. So mine are colored from painting, so they've been dyed, but these brushes look kind of like a bristle brush, but they're a little bit softer, all right? A real bristle brush is this. And this is, as you can tell, it's a thicker, real bristle. It's actual hair from a hog. And I do use these brushes, but I don't recommend them for beginners. So if you're a beginner, I want you to buy 6 brushes. You're gonna buy this, and if you want to take notes, I would say that that's probably a good idea. Buy a synthetic hog bristle, so it's not real. It's called synthetic hog bristle, flat, size 6 and size 8. And then I want you to buy the same brush, synthetic hog brush, series filbert, so it's a different kind of rounded edge. And I want you to buy size 4, 6, and 8, right? Yeah, 4, 6, and 8. And the sizes might be different depending on what brand you're buying. So just kind of take a look at this, and you want this to be, you want this size to be your largest brush. All right, so don't buy huge brushes like this. All right, and then the last brush I want you to buy is called a round brush. I'm also going to write all this out in the post below, the materials. This is a round brush. It's just like a pencil tip, you know, and I recommend buying size 4 rounds. All right, you can buy 1 or 2 of these. And sorry, this is more than 6 brushes, isn't it? So with those brushes, you're going to do the bulk of all of your painting, all right? You're going to do most of your painting with those brushes. And then the last thing I want you to buy is a large white nylon brush. Now you can buy any brand of these. You'll see them everywhere. They're just, the bristles are bright white, and they're for blending basically. So this is, you can't find these anymore. They stopped making them about a year ago, unfortunately. But they're basically just, you know, synthetic white nylon, large, about 1 inch wide brush like this. And you know, buy about 3 of these, because in one session, when you're blending, after that you've blended once, that brush, you got to put it away. So you can't use it the rest of the day. You got to clean it and then let it dry again before you can use it. All right, so the next thing is, what am I going to paint on? Like, how do I figure out what I'm going to do? And what I recommend for beginners that are brand new is just go and buy commercial canvas. Like if you have the money, for $90, you can buy a roll of Spectrum All Media cotton canvas. There's a 10 ounce and a 12 ounce. The 10 ounce I think is cheaper, so you can buy, it doesn't really matter what ounce you buy at this stage. Eventually, if you're going to paint really large paintings, you want to buy like a 12 ounce because it's better for large. But if you're just painting smaller stuff under 16 by 20, you can go with a smaller ounce, like a 10 ounce. Anyway, Spectrum All Media cotton canvas is a great surface, and you can paint right on it without having to gesso or prime it, all right? So that's why I recommend that canvas. You can also buy panels and then buy gesso and just gesso the panels. And we're going to go over that in an art tip later, although I believe there already is a tip from a few months back showing how to gesso panels, all right? Or you can also look on YouTube. There's tons of information about that. I don't want to take up this whole video just on materials. All right, so now that you have all your materials, what do? Well, the best thing to do is figure out where your level's at. So if you're an all access member, that means you pay the $15 US fee a month. You have access to everything, which means you have access to art critiques. So what I want you to do, starting this week right now, if you're an all access member, go ahead and send me a couple paintings and let me look at them. And what I'll do is I'll take a look and I'll kind of decide what I think, I'll let you know what level I think you're at. and then I'll kind of just tell you what videos I think you should watch, like what you should work on for the month. And then going forward every month, do the same thing, all right? Now, here's the thing. A lot of you are going to be at different levels, all right? Some of you are going to be really good at drawing, and some of you are not going to be that great at drawing. Or you may be good at drawing in pencil, but not really, you know, your drawing is not translating to painting. So for anyone out there that doesn't know how to draw, this channel is not for you. I apologize, but there's just no way that I have the ability to teach painting and teach drawing at the same time. It would just take up too much. But there's good news. If you're a brand new artist who doesn't know anything about drawing, I'm gonna start a new channel separate from this one in a few months that will be all about drawing. All right, so when you start on this channel, I want you to basically go and look for any videos that are labeled beginner or that you can kind of tell are kind of easier, all right? Any of the stuff that goes over glazing, layering, any of that's gonna be too complex. So in the beginning, the best thing to do as an oil painter is focus on alla prima painting or wet in wet. Basically the same stuff that you would see Bob Ross do, doing a painting in one sitting. That's gonna get you used to using the paint and whatnot. All right, now I'm gonna just show you a little bit about how to get started on the palette here. All right, so as you can see here, I have my palette laid out on a little, this is like a cheap Walmart table. I've got to get a better one, but this is a little bad. But I recommend getting a little table like this, putting up your palette on it, and I prop my palette up so it's at an angle. See this? It's not completely flat, so I don't have to bend over when I'm mixing. And what I want you to do is lay out your colors like I do in all my videos. So just the idea is start with your cool color all the way on this end, and you're gonna lay out so your cool yellow and your warm yellow. For those of you that are beginners though, remember I'm telling you just to use 3 colors. So your palette should look like that. You should have your yellow here, your bright red here, your ultramarine blue here, and titanium white here. All right. Eventually, I'm gonna ask people when you're in your about 6th month to add a few more colors, all right? But for now, you can do everything with just these 3 colors. You'd be surprised how many professional painters just use the 3 primaries. Big name artists, I'm talking big names, who mix all their own colors just from these 3. Now, the reason I'm having you do that is because you'll get better a lot more quickly if you're just using a small amount of colors to mix from. All right, so the other thing, you need to buy a jar. It has to be metal, all right? You can buy these anywhere, any art store. Buy one of these, and then you need to buy Gamsol, Gamblin Gamsol. All right, Gamsol is important because this is basically it's non-toxic, all right? It's a solvent, but it releases so little particles into the air that it's been deemed safe as long as you have adequate ventilation in your room. So put a fan on. If you can open a window, that's great, and you'll be completely fine. They've done lots of tests on it, and it's very safe. If you cannot use solvents, don't buy water mixable oils. Do not fall into that gimmick. The truth is, all oils can be cleaned up with soap and water. So the whole water mixable movement was done as a gimmick to kind of market acrylic painters over to oil brands. And the truth is that you're not supposed to mix the water mixable oils with water when you're painting anyway. If you actually read the instructions, it says to use the little oils that they give you because the water, it won't let the paint bind to the surface. So either way, you're still having to use oils. So if you want to use non-toxic oils, instead of buying a jar and filling it up with odorless mineral spirits, buy a jar and fill it up with baby oil. Believe it or not, just a little jar of baby oil. And then when you're painting, you're going to need a lot more brushes, all right? So you'll basically, if you're going to not use solvents, buy about 4 times as many brushes. And that way, when you're mixing a paint, you set every brush aside, and this is your brush that you mixed up your orange with. This brush you mixed up your blue, so you leave all the brushes so you don't intermix the colors. That way you don't have to clean the brushes off and get them wet. And then at the end of the session, you dip all the brushes into the baby oil and you just clean, and then you can wipe the baby oil out and leave that brush, and it's good to go until the next time. And if you want to thin the paint when you're painting, you can buy non-toxic mediums like there's some kind of, they're like Liquin, but they're solvent free, and you can see them, like Gamblin makes a solvent free medium, and there's lots of ones. So anyway, that's how to do it non-toxic. That's not going to apply to most of you. All right, so now we've got everything. We're ready to go painting, right? All right, the last thing you need, metal palette knife. Do not buy the little plastic ones at the art craft store. You gotta buy a metal one. And this, you're then gonna be ready to go and paint, all right? And now real quick, a little bit about color mixing. So when you're just starting out, your palette knife is gonna be for scraping and cleaning the palette off. I'm not gonna have you mixing with it. So you're gonna be doing all your mixing with your brushes. So in the beginning, you're gonna grab your paint, and let's say I want you to mix up a blue. So grab a little bit of white, and then dip your brush in a tiny bit of medium. I typically use the jar, so I'll dip my brush just into a tiny bit of the medium, and then just to get the paint flowing a little bit, then pull from the piles right here. All right, I gotta show you how important this is. So if you've got your paint laid out on your palette, squeeze it out like this in a line, and pull as you mix. So let's say I'm mixing up a blue here. Pull from this edge so that you don't pull from the middle, or because you'll ruin it if you get blue, or I'm sorry, if you get another color on your brush and then you go to mix the paint and you pull from back here, now you've got a bunch of purple in there. So you want to squirt your paint out in lines and then work your way from the front to the back so that you have clean paint. See how all this white back here is still clean, but it's dirty up here. So I'm just working my way back as I go, all right? So don't squeeze out your paint into big piles. Squeeze them out into lines, like a line, 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 line. All right, another thing too, if the paint is too stiff and it's too difficult to manage, mix a little bit of Liquin into the piles on your palette. And I'm talking a tiny bit, a little dollop of this, and then you mix it right in. So you'll mix it right in and then sculpt with your palette knife. Instead of squeezing a line out, you just kind of sculpt a line of white so that you can do the same thing we just talked about, which is pull from here and work your way back. All right. I know I'm covering a lot, and this is quite a bit to go over, but this is basically introduction to oil painting for those of you that are brand new. Now, a lot of you, this isn't gonna pertain to you because you've been with the channel for a while, you already know about painting, so you're just gonna have to kind of excuse me on this one, but I've had a lot of people request a video like this, or they sign up to join and there's no introduction video, and it's a big bummer for people. So I wanted to have this set up on the channel so that people who join know exactly what I expect of them and what materials to get and all of that. All right. See how with the metal palette knife, I'm able to scrape everything, right? And then if you're cleaning your palette, you then dip your brush in the odorless mineral spirits just a little bit and with a glass palette, you can clean it off perfectly. All right. All right, so the next video that I'm going to post next month is going to be part 2 of this series. And in that video, we're going to go over a very basic approach to the first thing that I recommend everyone paints. All right. So what that's going to be is a very simple landscape. It's going to be super simple. It's going to have a tree, grass plane, sky, and that's it. And we're just going to go over the basics on how to gradate a sky and gradate grass and paint a very simplistic tree. So it should be easy for all of you who are brand new to oil painting. All right. Thank you so much for watching. And for those of you who are a part of the channel, don't worry, there's still going to be 4 full-length tutorials this month. All right.